Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh,
The greatest scam in history.
let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Alright, you ungovernable misfits. I'm your host, Max. Everybody knows that Bitcoin is useless, worthless, and doomed to fail. But what if everyone's wrong? What if it's the system that is doomed to fail? Join me as I speak to some of the brightest people in the space and slither to the deepest, darkest depths of the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Welcome back, everyone. I've got Bitcoin Q&A back for our monthly show. We went through all the updates and we also talked about this Mara stuff, which I now have to actually correct because since recording this, they have flip-flopped back. I don't think we can take credit for it, but we're going to anyway. So I'll actually retract my fuck you Mara statement. No, still fuck you for doing it, but well done for going back on your stupid idea. So very glad to see that. Before we dive in, I just want to say thanks to Q&A for keeping me and all of us updated. Anyone who has any questions can reach out, and make sure to reach out for the next one if you have any questions as well. Thanks to CoinFloor UK for sponsoring the show. If you're in the UK and looking to use a KYC service or exchange, and you're looking to pound cost average in if you're going to buy weekly or monthly, make sure to check them out. They're a really, really good team, and if you are going to use a KYC service, you really should be making sure it's been one who's been around for a long time and who's not going to scam you. Next up is Crypto Cloaks. Crypto Cloaks are my new sponsors. You will know them from Bitcoin Twitter. They 3D print all sorts of things for all your Bitcoin needs, and they do some really fucking cool node cases and other bits. So if you haven't already checked it out, go to cryptocloaks.com and you can customize your designs. You can have all different colors and wording and all sorts of things on these things. So it's really, really cool. And yeah, again, any questions after listening to this, just reach out and enjoy the show. Hello, mate. How are you?
Afternoon, Max. Back again. These months seem to be flying by faster and faster. I can't believe we're nearly in June now.
I know, it is absolutely meant. This whole year's gone fucking quickly. It's so weird. But I think that's probably just because it's so busy. Everything has just gone crazy this whole year.
Nice that the prison that is the UK is slowly starting to open up a bit more, eh?
Not that I've noticed. I haven't barely been outside.
Well, it's I've not been to the beer garden much myself yet, but hopefully if the weather stays the way it is, we can get out in the sunshine a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So what do we got this month? We got a fair amount going on. My little bit of updates is I finally got my RoninDojo working, thanks to you and like Woe and many others, and I'm ecstatic about that. But that's my little software update.
Yeah, well, we've got a little bit of a update for Ronin later when we do the software updates.
Yeah,
for me, the observant listeners out there might have noticed that my website got taken down. Well, twice last week, actually. I've got a Tor self-hosted version at home, which obviously wasn't affected. But reality is most people access it via ClearNet, which is hosted on a virtual private server through Namecheap. And it seems that about 4 or 5 of the guys that are in the Matrix chat room that myself and Diverter host all seem to have got... We all run Host, which is like a tool that makes sort of hosting various programs quite easy. So, flashy graphical user interface. Mm-hmm. and my website, the ClearNet version of my website, is hosted through that on the virtual private server, and we all seem to get taken down without warning within about 24 hours of one another. So the weird thing, it's back up now. I had to do some back and two with support. They just kept saying that there was a network attack, but between the 4 or 5 of us that got taken down, we've still not got to the bottom of what was causing it. Everybody's back online now, but I think I'm going to be looking for a new hosting provider, really.
Do you say that was Unohost?
Well, Unohost is the program that I run, but it's on a virtual private server that's hosted by Namecheap.
Right. Okay.
Which, in fairness to them, until now have been absolutely spot on. But I don't know what sort of driven this push for them to be.
All 4 of you presumably are Bitcoin related.
Yeah, definitely.
So, it'd be interesting to know whether anyone else was affected who didn't have Bitcoin websites, or whether this is some sort of coordinated attack to take these websites offline. Yeah,
my gut feeling, because a couple of the guys that are in there are just like personal users of Unohost, so they don't actually have websites. They've just got it for like hosting Bitwarden and things like that. So right. I don't know whether it's Bitcoin related. It seems to be Unohost related, but we got our heads together to see if there's any common programs that we were all running that might have been causing the issue. But it seems to be very varied. We were all running different stuff, so we couldn't really pinpoint as to where the culprit was. But it's enough of a shock to me to look for other hosting providers that hopefully don't pry as much into what's going on the VPS.
Yeah, we sort of talked about this a few weeks ago, didn't we? Of the trade-offs, and if you're not hosting it yourself, you can just be switched off. But then you
perfect example, isn't it? Yeah, and like I said at the start, the Tor site, the Tor version of my site, which is on a Raspberry Pi in my office next to me now, obviously unaffected, but most people want to access via ClearNet, don't they? Unfortunately,
which you must have almost all the traffic through that, I'd imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is doing that from home easily means doxing your IP address. So obviously not desirable.
I wonder if I'm sure there is a way. Like, can you not? You know how you can get like a PO box or whatever. Is there not a way to sort of rent space in a server room where you put your own hardware? And so it would dox the IP of that place, but you're still running your own hardware and have access?
Yeah, you can expose, I forget the name now, but you can, I've done it before where you can expose the Tor version of your site through a virtual private server so that it shares that IP address. But you're still at the mercy of, if they switch that VPS off, then the ClearNet version of your site goes down. I know Catan does something through Cloudflare, but he's a networking wizard, and I've been asking him lots of questions the last couple of weeks about potentially looking to go that route. But the whole thing of doing it from home without Tor makes me a bit nervous, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Something to think about.
Definitely. But it was sickening seeing the email pop up, and I had a couple of DMs saying your site's down, and it's like having your right arm cut off after all the work that you put into it.
Yeah. Oh dear. So what do we got as updates?
Right. So software updates were, like I say, a bit of a quieter month this month, but some of the key ones. First one is LND, which is the Lightning Labs implementation of the Lightning Network. They've got a new beta release candidate, which is basically sort of a run it if you dare type release. The key one to note here is they've added support for atomic multipath sending and receiving. So atomic multipath receiving and sending, basically it splits your payment up into you can use multiple channels to make a payment, which might be useful in the instance of, let's say you've got 2 channels and they're both 500,000 sats each, and you need to send 1 million sat payment through Lightning. Before multipath payments, you wouldn't be able to do it because you could only send the total of your largest channel. With multipath payments, you can split that up between those two channels, and it would get to the end destination because you could leverage both of those channels in one payment. Now that's called multipath payments, and that's been around for I don't know when it came out, but that's been in Lightning for quite a while. Atomic multipath payments adds a bit of privacy, whereby each piece of that payment, so say it's split into two, each of those payments will have a different payment hash. So anybody who's trying to sort of surveil you on Lightning or have a directed attack at you, if they intercepted both of them, they'd look like two separate payments, when in reality they are the same one. So that's where the improvement comes over just multipath payments.
That's really clever.
Yeah, very clever. Obviously, stress that this is the beta release at the moment, so it's not you're not going to be able to open Zeus tomorrow and leverage this. But it's obviously coming down the pipe, and a bit of an improvement to Lightning privacy, which we've got more on later as well. that's
really interesting. So if you're using AMP, can you do something where you split it into more than two? Like, it can be like, just for example, you have 8 channels and you wanna split it across those, and it could be all different amounts, but it all adds up to that 100,000 sats or whatever it is that you're doing, million sats.
I think that's how it works. It just sort of probes your channels, see what's the most appropriate number of channels to split it down based on your local balance in each channel. I think it also takes into account fee rates as well, because obviously the more routes that you take, the more nodes that you're hopping through. If they're charging exorbitant fees, then you're going to get hit with those. So it might not always be beneficial to route through more channels than you need to. But I'm pretty sure this is smart enough that you can sort of set those parameters to say, keep fees below X amount.
Okay, I know we're getting onto more privacy stuff with Lightning later, so I'll ask the questions that are in my head now later.
Cool. My node, they've added balance of Satoshis, which is a command line interface for working with your Lightning Network node. Next one, RoninDojo. Big update from the guys down there. They've introduced their web application, which is a replacement for their desktop app, so that the desktop app is no longer, and they now have all the node functionality accessible via your Tor or your local network. So you could just type in ronindojo.local in the same way that you would MyNode or your Umbrella, and it just allows you to interact easily with your node. You've got all of the usual functionality that you used to have through the old desktop application. But the kicker here is that now you don't need to visit Dojo maintenance tool separately to do any like wallet imports or anything like that. It's all built within this web application. So it's really sort of the one-stop shop for all of your sort of Ronin needs, really.
So because obviously now I'm running this, does that mean when I went into my Dojo maintenance tool to get back all my balances and do that thing where I look back 100, whatever, could I have done all that in the web app?
Yeah, it's all there now. All on the left-hand side. You'll see it. It'll say Xpub Tools on the left-hand side, which is basically, it's just a carbon copy of all the functionality that you'd have through your Dojo maintenance tool, which you used to access through Tor browser, but it's all lumped into one.
Right, I didn't know that. I still went back and did it all the old way. I wasn't.
Yeah, no, it's all in one-stop shop now. So it's.
That's really good. That's really slick.
Yeah, big one. And I've had a sneak peek at version 2 of the web app. This is sort of version 1, if you like, and I must say it's looking incredible. So I'm really, I've got no timelines as to when it's going to come out, but what's coming down the pipe for the second version of their web app is looks very, very cool, actually. Awesome. Lots of new sort of additional toys, but I can't really go too too deep into them. Otherwise, I'll have
yeah.
Zelko knocking on my door.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll look forward to that when it comes out.
Yep. Seed Signer. I think we spoke about these guys last month, and I think you've had them on the podcast as well. Haven't you?
Yeah.
So they've updated big sort of code refactoring update basically. So just to recap, what Seed Signer is for anybody that didn't hear us last month is it's basically like a DIY signing device that you can build yourself through generic hardware like Raspberry Pi Zero. You get a little screen and you put a camera in it, and it's basically a cool little way that you can use to generate seeds and use it as a signing device in a multi-sig wallet. So they've updated their code base to basically cut the startup time in half. The version 1, which is the one I'm running still, I'm holding my hands up, I haven't updated yet, I'm being a bit lazy. But the version 2 cuts down the startup time in half. So I think you're looking at about 30 seconds now, where it used to be over a minute before to get everything booted up. Obviously, you're running this on really cheap, low power hardware, which is why, for anybody out there that's listening going, well, it takes over a minute to boot up. But this is like something stupid, like an £8 Raspberry Pi. So it's designed to be done on cheap hardware. I believe you've got one on the way, have you?
Yeah, well, I've got the case for one on the way, and also a case for Spectre DIY as well. So I've got 2 different ones that I'm going to be working on and building. But yeah, Seed Sign is going to be the first one, and really looking forward to that arriving.
Yeah, it's a really unique device. So I've really enjoyed playing with mine, actually. Well, I'm building it in the first place, especially for those that are interested in going down the multi-sig path.
Did you do all the soldering and all of that stuff yourself?
No, I was lucky really that I managed to find one of the Pi Zeros with a pre-soldered sort of pin board in it. But I've tried to find them since and I can't find them anywhere. So I think what's the chap behind Seed Sign is going to do is he's going to sell the boards with the pre-soldered pins in. So you can buy the Raspberry Pi ready to go from him if you wanted to.
Okay.
But obviously that removes a little bit of the DIY-ness of it, if you know what I mean. But obviously some people will find value in that who the thought of soldering might put them off a little bit.
Yeah, I'll definitely be keen to give it a go. I just don't have a soldering iron, so I need to go and either buy one or borrow one and fuck around. So if I could avoid that, I would.
I heard him say on one of the podcasts that he's been on lately, there's a tool that you can buy where you can just hammer them, and it just sort of bends the end of the pin over so that it makes the necessary contact.
He said that to me, but it made me a bit worried because I was thinking, a hammer, a little board, it's just going to go fucking so wrong. So I thought it might be better to do it carefully with a solder.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good learning experience as well to get your hands dirty. Obviously, it's not definitely not geared towards the mainstream. This is it's a bit more of a tinkerer's project, but it's a fun one to get involved with. Next up, Sparrow Wallet version 1.4.1. Big update. Well, there's lots of little updates in this one. The main one being that you can opt to broadcast transactions through an external service like blockstream.info or I believe mempool.space offer it as well. So if you don't have your own node and you're connected to one of the trusted ones, you can also opt to broadcast the transaction through a different external service, which can have some privacy benefits. But what Craig's done there now, Craig Raw from Sparrow, is he's made the default that if you're doing multiple transactions in one sort of sitting, it'll create a new Tor circuit with each one so that the transactions can't be correlated by, say, a malicious actor at blockstream.info if that's where you're using to broadcast your transaction.
Okay, but you'd only use that to broadcast your transaction if you're not using that with your own node, is that right?
Generally speaking, yes, but there are a few people that I speak to, and I think Craig is one of them as well, that does actually see the benefit in occasionally broadcasting over Tor not through your own node, because it's for the same reason that you're not tying multiple transactions to the same Tor address.
Right. Okay.
And 6102 has actually got a tool, I think we may have talked about this before, called txcast.org, which sort of does the same thing, but he also adds in some random time delays into that. And that uses an external node to broadcast from. So yeah, there's a growing number of people that are of the opinion that potentially sometimes doing it not through your own node might have some benefits. You're still not losing any of the security in the fact that to receive in the first place before you create that transaction, it's gone through your own node, and you're comfortable that it's been verified and you haven't been sent any fake Bitcoin, etc.
Okay.
On the same thought process, Spectre version 1.4.0, they've also added this functionality to broadcast through an external service over Tor. But the change here is that Spectre used to default to do it over ClearNet. Obviously not great for privacy, because if you were opting to use, again, say blockstream.info, and you were doing it over ClearNet, then it's trivial to tie that transaction to your IP address.
Okay. Yeah.
They've also added a feature as well, which I've not had a chance to play with, so I'm just reading between the lines from the release notes, but they've added a feature for multiple nodes. So if you run Spectre Desktop and you've got wallets, or you can now connect it to multiple nodes. I'm sort of thinking out loud as I go along, really, as to why you might want to do that. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on it.
So what, you can connect two different nodes to one Spectre desktop?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I suppose if you had it connected to two different nodes, you could make sure that everything is the same across both of them, if that makes sense. Like that you're seeing the same.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah, you could check that your umbrella is acting as honestly as your RoninDojo.
Yeah, exactly that. Or like if you're making a new transaction, you could make sure that the receiving address is actually the correct receiving address, because they've both got your XPubs from your cold card or whatever. So you would then. Oh no, that doesn't make sense.
No, because
it would
the
still
XPub
be
would
within one.
Spectre,
Yeah. It'd still be within. So the perfect setup then would be to have Spectre and Sparrow both connected to two nodes, and then when you're going to do a receive transaction, they both have your XPubs from the same wallet. So you would then check that they both come up with the same, and that both nodes are working honestly across both. So you'd like double and quadruple check everything before you go.
Yeah, possibly. I might message Ben about that one. I might be completely missing the point here, but yeah, you make a valid point.
Okay, that's right.
Last one of the notable software updates. Umbrel have version 0.3.10. They've added LND Hub for Blue Wallet Lightning. So Blue Wallet, by default, their Lightning implementation is a custodial one, meaning that that Blue Wallet and Blue Wallet's Lightning node are in control of your funds. You've basically just got an IOU, which is great for onboarding, not great for everything else.
Yeah.
So Umbrel have added LND Hub, which is basically the ability for you to connect your Blue Wallet Lightning instance to your own Lightning node. I believe my node's had this for quite some time, but I think the software's had a bit of an update, and the Umbrel guys have added it in as well. The kicker here is, other than obviously it becomes non-custodial, which is the way nature intended Bitcoin to be used, is that it's a great tool for onboarding friends and family. So if you wanted to onboard a friend onto Lightning, you could say, right, download Blue Wallet, and I guess they send you some sats. Well, previously that would be, you'd basically be sending Blue Wallet the sats, and your friend would just hope that they'd be able to spend them one day. Whereas now they can just scan a QR code on your Umbrel and connect. They can use your channels. So they're still trusting, but rather than them trusting Blue Wallet's node, they're trusting you. because they're going to sort of piggyback on your channels basically and have their own little account on
Uncle
your Lightning
Jim.
node. Uncle Jim, yes, it's the perfect Uncle Jim model. Yeah.
That sounds like the sort of Uncle Jim that I feel I could do myself. I'd really love to be an Uncle Jim one day, and this feels like this could be the start of it because it's easy enough, just literally a QR code and a new wallet for someone, send them some sats, done.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
And I think the key thing to note as well is that they can only spend what's in their account. So if you've got, say, 2 channels and they're both 10 million sats each, they don't have access to that. They can only access whatever they receive through that app. It kind of sort of portions it off.
Right.
It uses your channels, but it portions it off for them so that they can only access what's rightfully theirs, and they can't sort of screw anything up for you.
That's cool. Have you run Umbral yet?
Yeah, I run it when it first came out. Actually, I was getting a few questions sort of in DMs about sort of little issues that people were having, and having not run one, it was pretty difficult for me to sort of say try this and try that. So yeah, I've run it. Very smooth, easy setup. You can see why it's gained a lot of traction in a short space of time. What about you?
Yeah, I spun one up the other night. It was when I was trying to get my RoninDojo sorted, and I was like, look, I've been doing this for a million years now. Like, if it just doesn't work, then at least I've got this fucking Umbral thing should work. So I spun it up, and it took maybe 3-4 minutes, like from start to finish. I had a pile set up and built anyway that I was running different software on. I flashed it, clicked next pretty much, and then it was done. And then it took 3 days, 4 days for the IBD to be done, and I've done nothing with it since. It's just it's running. It was very, very slick, but I've not used it at all.
And I think that comes down back to when you get all these node implementations, adding all the bells and whistles. I've been there before as well. Is that you've got this node that can do all these things, and I never use half of them. No. I want, I think we've spoken about this before in terms of I like to have sort of specialist nodes, and it's absolutely not a requirement. It's just because I'm a turbo nerd and like to fettle around with stuff, but I like to keep my nodes specialized, if you like. So I've got my RoninDojo, which is my mixing. It backs my Samurai wallet, and it's my mix machine basically. It does that very well. I just set it and forget it basically. I've got my Raspberry Blitz, that is my Lightning machine, and again it does that very well, and it does only that. So I'm a bit dubious as to the kitchen sink approach. Yeah. It's nice to have bells and whistles, but if you're not going to use them, then it's just other stuff that can break.
Yeah, I've got exactly the same. I've got my Raspberry Blitz for the Lightning stuff, which, to be honest, I never use. And then I've got, very rarely, very, very rarely, a couple of times I've used it, but it is rare. And then the RoninDojo, which is now up and running, and I'm very happy, and that's mixing away beautifully. And then, I've got a MyNode and an Umbral, but literally all I use the MyNode for is just pointing it at Spectre. That's it, nothing else. And the Umbral, I've just done it for the sake of it, pretty much. But I might link it to my Sphinx or do something like that. Just use so that I actually get to play with it. But yeah, it is very, very slick. Like that is what I would suggest to anyone who's starting out, like friends or family and stuff, because it was just so simple.
Yeah, good for the normies. It's a good first starter node. All right, should we move on to the new releases?
Yes.
Cool. All right, opensats.org is an initiative by Matt Odell and a few of his pals. I think Catan's he's on the board. There's a few other people. I'm forgetting the name now. Is it Ben Price, maybe?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest.
Yeah, so this is... I'm going to have to look that up now. Yeah, it is Ben Price. This is an initiative basically to allow anybody to fund open source development. Basically, what they're doing is they're sort of going to be the custodians of a pot of sats. You can also donate in fiat as well. There's two ways that they're going to work it. They're going to have a general fund where you can just say, okay, yeah, I'm going to give you £10 a month, and I want you to give it to who you see fit. Or you can also go onto their platform when it's released and fund specific open source developers or contributors. So I think this has filled a bit of a gap in the market, in the fact that sometimes there's people that want to contribute that are technically inept, a bit like me and you, Max. And they might want to just be able to, the only way that they can see to support is just to give a little bit of money each month to support some developers. So they've structured it in a way that is tax beneficial for those in the US. So if you were to donate, anything that you donate, you can do it as a tax write-off. I'm unclear at the moment as to whether that is going to be a benefit for people outside of the US. But obviously, the nature of Bitcoin is that if you're donating in sats, you can donate from anywhere in the world, basically. So really cool initiative. They've only had their soft launch at the moment, but I believe it's imminent that it's going to come out this month in June. So I'd urge anybody who's feeling that they perhaps can't contribute in other ways to sort of sign up and sort of donate that way and support the open source ecosystem. I believe you've been chatting to Matt about this, have you?
Yeah, we've got something in the works. I can't give too much away. All I can say is OpenSats and 21ism are doing something together soon.
Interesting. Very mysterious. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. The next one, sidecar channels, which I'll be honest, made me laugh when I heard it, is a new addition to the Lightning Network spec from LND again, Lightning Labs, which is going to be hopefully a bit of a bonus in terms of onboarding people. So obviously we've spoken at length before now about the inbound liquidity problem that Lightning has, basically that it's difficult to receive when you're just starting out unless you get somebody to open a channel to you. So what Sidecar Channels does basically is to allow, say, an exchange to open a channel through a routing node on the fly to, say, let's say you've just bought on an exchange that supports Lightning withdrawals. Well, for you to receive your sats, you'd need somebody to open a channel to you. Well, what these sidecar channels do is allow, say, Bitfinex or whatever the exchange is, to open a channel to you on the fly through another routing node. The routing node will pick up some fees for that. And then, the end game is that you get a channel to you so that you can receive on Lightning. Very early days yet. I don't know of any sort of live implementations of it. But hopefully on the surface of it seems like a good onboarding tool. How scalable it is, because obviously there's going to be fees involved in that, which the end user is obviously ultimately going to eat. So let's say you withdraw 1 million sats from the exchange. There's obviously going to be a haircut to that when because the routing node's going to want to take some fees from that. So how much you'd be left with at the end of it is unclear at the moment, but certainly a promising idea. Okay, next one, Mining Pool Observer. Have you had a chance to look at this one? It's from the mysterious dev who goes by the catchy name of 0xB10C.
Is this the guy that got funding from Lightning Labs or something? Like, it was the first dev who was a NIM to get the funding from them like a year and a half ago or something?
Possibly.
I remember there being like a name, something like that.
No, yeah, I know who you mean. No, I think this is a different person.
Okay.
So this dev is the one who's behind mempool.observer, which is a block explorer which offers some unique looks at sort of recent blocks. You'll have seen me, if anybody follows me on Twitter, you'll have seen me posting screenshots of sort of colourful arrays of transactions and whatnot. That's from mempool.observer, which is a great alternative to mempool.space as well. Just make sort of easy visualizations of the network. So this dev, he, she, they, whoever they are, has made another site called miningpool.observer, which is basically a couple of features on it. The main one is geared towards being able to tell whether mining pools are censoring transactions. So the way that they do it is anybody can run a template. Anybody can run a command on their node called get block template, which is what the miners do when they start to try and mine a new block. Now, this website basically does that and then compares it to the block that actually gets mined and confirmed into the block. And it compares, is there any extra transactions in it or is there any less transactions in it? And then it sort of highlights those transactions that are missing or that have been added so that we can see if there's any foul play going on, which seems quite apt now that we've got this marathon pool, seems to be gaining some hash power at the moment. So
this is this fucking Mara thing with
OFAC compliant blocks.
Can we just touch on it a little bit, because I try and stay out of this stuff, but it seems like this is a really fucking cunty thing that's happening. I can't think of another word to describe it.
That's an accurate description. Yeah. So basically, what their virtue signaling is basically they're saying that any blocks that they mine are quote unquote OFAC compliant. Now OFAC, I can't remember what it stands for, but basically they've got a list of quote unquote bad addresses that are allegedly controlled by, again, quote unquote bad people. So these marathon, the mining pool has basically pledged to say we're going to make sure that any transactions that are associated with these addresses, we're going to exclude them from blocks, and we're going to they put in the block header of each block that they mine, this block is OFAC compliant, which it's just like a fuck you to the network, isn't it, basically? Now obviously Bitcoin is an open system. Anybody's free to participate. If you wanted to spin a miner up tomorrow, you could, and so could I. The outrage has come from the fact that obviously this is very anti-Bitcoin. It's against the sort of ethos of Bitcoin, if you like. And from where I'm sitting as well, is it's completely unnecessary. There's no laws currently that say that address is illegal. You can't transact. You can't transact with that address. It's my gut feeling is it's virtue signaling so that they can gain more funding and grow. The suits are going to love the fact that, oh look, there's a compliant a compliant mining pool. So I'm not too worried about it at the moment. I mean, if they start to gain more hash power, it might start becoming an issue. The chances of them gaining a majority of hash power is very, very slim, but it's something that a lot of people are keeping their eye on. And obviously a bit disappointing that everybody's fan favourite, Mr. Saylor, came out in support of them. Well, I say everybody. I use the term everybody loosely. Don't include myself in that.
Yeah, it's really fucking annoying because you always know, and this is why I never get the finance guys on this show, even though I'm really interested in a lot of it. People come in and then people say, oh, well, these guys have got lots of money, and they simp for them and say, oh, they're going to be great for the space. And it's annoying because a lot of what Saylor says to me, I've always been on the fence. I'm like, a lot of what he says is very smart. He understands this shit. A lot of it financially is good advice he's giving. He's looking quite deeply into how this is going to change things. But you always have the sense that the guys that come from the traditional background and who already have lots of money and maybe can benefit from this kind of bullshit, eventually seem to. It's like Raoul Pal and all these kind of guys that come in, everyone goes like crazy because they're like, oh, okay, they've got knowledge in the traditional system. It's like, well, this isn't a traditional system. This is the one to replace that bullshit. And it is frustrating, but it also seems to me that it's frustrating, but it's like, first of all, if they're going to block addresses, how hard is it to change a fucking address? Like, it's a bit stupid. How hard is it to actually get around that? It doesn't seem like it would be a challenge for anybody to just send funds from one address to another separate address, and then you can just go. And also, the other question is, like, if we all think, well, this is stupid, this Mara thing, is there not a way to, as a user, not accept it to go into a block mined by them? Or is that something that's not possible?
No, you wouldn't be able to exclude a specific
miner.
A specific miner or a specific pool, really, would you? There's no, to my knowledge, there's no sort of way that you'd be able to do that. I mean, currently the only way that we know who mined the block is because they do, I think it's an op return where they just put the name of the mining pool. That's how we know, which can be gamed as well. They've got no obligation to do that. If they wanted to go dark and just not put anything in there or act as if they were, say, slush pool, then I don't think there's anything that would be able to tell that they were doing that, which again, it just comes back to the fact that they're just virtue signaling to their bootlickers at the end of the day, aren't they? And they're just looking for more compliant investment.
It's fucking
the other ironic thing is as well is that let's say that they're successful and they don't mind that, they exclude a transaction because it's got a quote unquote bad address in it. So let's say in the next block it's that transaction that they have not included gets mined by Slushpool. It's confirmed into the network, and then in another half an hour, Marapool mine another block with a completely separate set of transactions. The very act of them mining that block cements all of the blocks before it and adds to the security of all them. So they're still sort of inadvertently supporting those transactions because they're building on top of them. So it's complete bullshit.
And presumably, even if like somehow they got loads of funding, they get loads of hash power, they're mining loads of blocks, people can still make that transaction and they could just bump the fee up. In the worst case, they could bump the fee up, and then Mara will say, oh, well, we're not going to mine that. We're not going to take that fee, even though it's a higher fee than the rest of them. So they're just going to fuck themselves and someone else will mine it.
Yeah,
that's how it feels.
The problem arises is if they get anywhere close to a majority of hash power, because then there isn't enough hash power willing to mine the quote-unquote uncompliant transactions. I really, really don't think we're going to get to that.
No.
But something just to sort of be wary of and just keep your eye on who's sort of coming out in support of this shit.
Yeah, that's annoying. Has Saylor done any sort of backtracking or like reasoning to why he's doing what he's doing? Because like, I haven't really looked into it. I just saw it and I was like, oh, fucking hell, this looks irritating.
No, I don't think he has, to be honest with you. No, not that I've seen, but then again, I don't follow him on Twitter. Also, I've just realised that I made a promise last week on Twitter that we weren't going to mention the aforementioned Saylor or Mr. Musk, and we failed on both parts. So I apologise.
We didn't say Musk. We didn't say Musk until.
Well, I just fucked it now.
Yeah, you fucked it. Musk, Saylor. Yeah, no, fuck Mara and you, Saylor, if you're supporting them. I like some of the stuff you're saying, but that is fucking stupid. We don't like that here. That's not Bitcoin.
No.
Moving on.
Education, a strong month in education. I just picked out some highlights. Ben from BTC Sessions has done a really long and all-encompassing Lightning Network node guide setup. He's done it using Umbrel, but he goes through opening channels, managing your channels, all using Thunderhub, which comes packaged with every single Lightning node, not just Umbrel. It's a really long one, very, very detailed. So anybody who's looking to get started with Lightning, the proper way with your own node, that needs to be your number one protocol. It's really, really cool. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't watched that specific one, but I set up my first ever node because of one of his guides, and we featured him recently on 21ism, and I'm a big fan. Like,
he's done a lot, hasn't he?
he makes it so accessible and so simplified and just like clean. You can just sit down and watch it, and everything is answered down to, you know, what power supply and what this and what that, and so you just can't fuck it up. So yeah, I haven't seen it, but I know it will be good.
I dread to think the amount of sats he spent on transaction fees just doing his guides.
Yeah, yeah,
Because he never uses testnet. It's always mainnet. So
yeah, top man.
But yeah, hats off.
Really
yeah,
good
really
content.
good. Next one, Chaincode Labs have announced the team at Chaincode. They quite often do summer residencies for people developers who are interested in contributing to Bitcoin or the Lightning Network. Obviously, this is generally reserved for the smart people who know what they're talking about. Again, not like me and you. They've now released some online seminars which are like on a weekly basis, which I think, from what I can sort of gather, is geared more towards the interested tinkerer is probably the best way to describe it, rather than just developers. So they've got one for Bitcoin protocol development, and it's a 5-week course where they cover SegWit, mining, the peer-to-peer network, wallets and scripts. And they've also got one for the Lightning Network, which covers payment channels, HTLCs, routing, future of Lightning. So again, it's not geared towards beginners. It's geared towards sort of people who are interested to really sort of dig in a little bit and to get underneath it. And they're taking applications at the moment. And it's once a week for 5 weeks. There's lots of homework by the look of it. They're encouraging you to sort of read Mastering Bitcoin, which again is quite a technical book. I've applied for it.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I've applied for it. I post on Twitter saying, obviously, I'm not a developer, but I think I fit the bill of people who like to sort of scratch under the surface a little bit more. Whether I'll get on, I don't know. I mean, I probably don't have the time to do it, to be honest with you, but I'm sure there's I can scarve off work or a little bit.
Well, if you do get on it, you can borrow my Mastering Bitcoin book, because
I've got it as well.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I was going to say I have no fucking idea what I'm reading there, so you can you could have borrowed it.
It's a very, very good book, by the way, by Andreas Antonopoulos. Quite
detailed.
It is very detailed, and the good thing about that is the way it's sort of sectioned off. Is that what I tend to do? I mean, I've read it from start to finish, like the sad bastard that I am, but sometimes the way that it's sectioned off is that you can just sort of go to, say, I don't know, chapter 4 and just do some more homework on, say, block propagation or something stupid like that you can just sort of pick out a little bit and brush up on it again. But yeah, it's it is a technical book, but I learned a lot from it, and I became a little bit more technical from it. So if there's anybody else out there that is interested in sort of understanding the nuts and bolts of this thing, it's a very, very good start.
Yeah, to see how things actually work and like break it down. It is very good. It's just a lot of it goes over my head. There were parts where I was reading it and I was like, yeah, like I get the basic idea here, but Jesus, this is like fucking technical stuff.
Yeah. Self-shill here. I've updated my Sparrow Wallet guide to include a full multi-sig setup, and I have also released the multi-sig guide, which we touched on last month because it had literally just been released the day before. I believe you got a couple of questions, Max, on this one.
Yeah, so you've got your Sparrow 101 and multi-sig guide, haven't you, recently come out? So this is perfect because I'm now going to be setting up Sparrow, and I've got obviously the cold cards, but then I've got a seed signer on its way. So I'm looking to set up a little multi-sig just to have a play and fuck around and get used to it, because we want one for 21ism between all of us. And I thought, well, at least if I get the basics and understand it, then the setup should be easier. Any sort of catch me out, or what should I be looking at to start? Say, for example, I've now built my seed signer, I've got another cold card and, one other device. I'm actually going to be building one of these Spectre DIYs as well. So if I have those 3 hardware wallets, now what do I do? Should I go straight onto Sparrow 101 or multi-sig guide, or what should I go to
So
first?
the first thing is, if you're going to use Sparrow, it doesn't currently support Seed Signer.
Okay.
There is a bit of a hacky way that you can do it, which I cover at the back end of my multi-sig guide, but you won't be able to use it to sign transactions. You could use it to build the wallet, the multi-sig wallet. So you could use a cold card, the Spectre, and the Seed Signer to create it. Obviously, I presume you're going to do a 2 or 3, are you?
I was thinking to, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not really a problem. You could just sign with the Spectre and with the cold card, and the Seed Signer could just be like the redundant signer. That's what I've called it in my multi-sig guide. If you wanted to do it where you can sign with the Seed Signer, right now you'd have to use Spectre, which again, self-shield, that's the setup that I've done with my multisig.guide is the URL. But Spectre is also fantastic for it, and that's why I've updated my Sparrow. Sparrow is also fantastic for it, because that's one of the reasons I've updated my Sparrow 101. Is I did a multi-sig setup with Kobo, Cold Card, and Spectre DIY. But in terms of advice, obviously read these 2 guides first, and depending on which software you want to use, they're both very capable, and the setup flow is just as easy on both of them. Sparrow will give you more sort of a sort of technical rundown, whereas Spectre it's a little bit more. It looks a little bit more polished in terms of the UI, but in terms of functionality, both very, very similar. So what I'd probably say is just set it up on both and just see which one you prefer.
And can I set up? Sorry, cutting you off. Can I set up the same multi-sig with the same devices across both?
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
And that's exactly what I did in my multi-sig guide. Is I used Sparrow. The names are too similar. I used Spectre. Spectre setup is the bulk of the guide, but what I also include at the end is how you can recreate that same wallet in Sparrow for two reasons. Number one, you're comfortable using another piece of software if Spectre was ever to disappear, which is unlikely because it's open source software. And also so that, let's say you create the wallet, Spectre gives you an address that ends in 123. If you recreate that exact same wallet using the same devices in Sparrow, and it gives you that same receiving address, you can be sure that Spectre is acting honestly, because they're both producing the exact same output. Does that make sense?
Yes. The way I'm seeing things now, I'm starting to think that having Spectre and Sparrow, whether you're having single or multi-sig, should almost not be the standard, but it seems like that would be logical if you have the time and energy to set it up, because you have like the redundancy, you have the 2 bits of software, you can check things against each other. It feels like that would be the best way to set it up. So that is what I'm going to try and do.
Yeah, definitely. And again, probably more for the benefit of the people listening, is make sure that you verify the software that you download as well. It's covered in both of the guides. There's step-by-steps as how to verify them both. But I mean, the setting up 2 different coordinators might seem like overkill to some. And if you're not interested in doing that for obvious reasons that you haven't got the time or whatever, is just make sure that you verify. Let's say you pick Sparrow, just make sure you verify it when you download it, so that you can be sure that what you're downloading is what's intended by the lead dev of the project that you've chosen.
With your guide, does it go through verifying on both Linux and with a Mac, or is it just Linux?
Well, the commands for Linux and Mac should be the same. It doesn't cover Windows, but I think I linked to how to do it on Windows. Obviously, I don't have a Windows machine, so I can't give any easy commands on how to do it. But I know Craig from Sparrow has got the step-by-step instructions for all 3 operating systems on his website to verify it. Yeah. Are you there? It wouldn't be a Q&A and Max show without Max disappearing.
Hello, mate. Are you still there?
Yep.
Fucking my computer just...
Can you hear me?
Completely fucking died on me. Oh, you're offline now. Oh, you bastard.
I can hear it.
Can you see the audio on your side? What we had before?
I've got local backup 52.92 megabytes, and the same on the cloud backup.
Can you try and do your backups for both? I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to have to send a new link and just hope that I've got it. My laptop just fucking turns itself off, man. It's plugged in.
Where do I how do I do the download?
Let me stop the recording.
I was going to say it's after the recording stops, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, let me stop it now. Hey, mate, sorry. Fuck's sake.
We're back.
I did this exactly the same on the... Was it the last one I did with you?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a Q&A and Max recording, would it, without some technical difficulties?
Oh, this laptop, I swear to God, it fucking drives me insane. Just literally dies on me all... It's only a couple of years old. Dies on me all the fucking time. It just
sounds like you need a new one.
I do. If my house sells, that is as tight as I am going to buy myself a new laptop.
What are you going to get yourself?
I don't know. I sort of quite like... I like the idea of either one of these ThinkPads, but like something that's actually decent and will run properly, or one of those System 76 things everyone keeps saying is pretty good. I don't know what the trade-offs are, whether it's better to get something like System 76 that's like sort of built for the operating system I'd probably end up putting on it anyway, the POP OS, or just to buy a really beefed up laptop from somewhere else, because they're quite expensive, those System 76 things.
They are, yeah. Just to put the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit, I've just sent you a link to a laptop that I've got on order.
Oh.
Called Star Labs, or by a company called Star Labs. It's a UK company, actually. Looks quite a nice...
just wait for this to load with my ancient machine, shitty internet. It's just wheel of death. That didn't open. You just sent it on...
Telegram.
Why is that not opening then? Oh, here we are. I've got it. Very snazzy. Oh, that's pretty reasonable money as well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you can spec it up to sort of the internals that you want. You can put big hard drives in it, more RAM, faster processor and stuff. And so I'm just waiting for it to be shipped at the moment. But they're sort of... I don't think it's due to land until the end of June. Weirdly enough, I was looking at them and they were sold out. I saw it on Twitter somewhere, and the very next day, Catan messaged me, said, "Mate, I'm just going to order this. I don't know if you've heard of them." And I was like, "Well, that's a bit spooky," and because he's ordered one as well. And I was like, "Well, yeah." I was looking at those literally yesterday, and they were out of stock. So yeah, I haven't told my wife yet, but I've ordered one. And I'm just waiting for it to turn up, but it's not due till the end of June, because they sort of build them in batches. So I will.
It looks slick, actually.
Yeah, it looks really cool, doesn't it? So
it's like a nice matte black sort of look. Maybe I'll post the thing in the show notes.
Yeah, put it in. They've still got some in stock, actually. I thought they were going to sell out really, really quickly. So once I've got it, I'll report back and I'll do a full report on it to see whether it's worth recommending to others. But my gut feeling is that if Catan's got one, he's my gauge of whether something's worth going after or not. It was just a bit spooky, the fact that I looked at it and thought, "Oh, that's really good." I went to order it and it was out of stock, and then the very next day they must have got a new batch in. So
nice. I'm gonna check one out. If this house sells, that'll be my treat to myself, is a laptop that actually fucking works, considering I'm in front of it all day.
I was just about to say, yeah, it is your livelihood. So
yeah, exactly. So before my laptop let me down and I let you down, where were we?
I think we were talking about multi-sig and Sparrow Inspector and verifying
yes,
the downloads and stuff. I think we kind of got to the end of it, to be honest with you. It was just a case of like the guide tells you to do: create the wallet, verify your receive addresses, try and create the wallet in another piece of software, check that the addresses match, send a very small amount in, and then practice sending a transaction back out again before you do anywhere near any sort of real amount of sats. And again, this is more for anybody else listening rather than just yourself who's going down that rabbit hole, is don't jump into multi-sig just because somebody on Twitter said so. Single sig still very, 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 very good enough for most people. And yeah, just don't jump in with both feet because you're more likely to fuck yourself with multi-sig than you are with single sig.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm only doing it just out of curiosity, really.
Same here, yeah.
And just to see, and because we do need a solution for 21ism so we can all access funds to do projects and stuff. So I will eventually have to use it, but I'm very comfortable with my single sig, the way it's set up. So I don't feel I need to, other than just to see what it's all about.
Yeah, I will say as well, for the intermediate sort of Bitcoin who's been around for longer than 12 months, that like yourself, that's got used to single sig, multi-sig isn't as difficult as I thought it was, but there's still a lot more foot guns that you can screw yourself over than there is with single sig, so just tread carefully.
Will do.
Right, on to a couple of articles. A very, very good one on Lightning Network privacy, literally called The Current State of Lightning Network Privacy. This is by a chap called Anthony Roning, or Roning, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, so if you're listening, I apologise. Very all-encompassing article on, clues in the name, the current state of privacy in Lightning. Very much needed this one, I think, because there's quite a lot of people. Lightning seems to be sold as the privacy silver bullet. I think a lot of people used to think that I can just open a channel and then anybody that I pay and anybody that receives to me, because it's not on the chain, I'm just private. I don't need to coin join. I don't need to manage my coin control or anything like that. I'm just going to use Lightning. It's private. It's easy, which is obviously not true. And this guide by Anthony goes through all of the nuances around that and how there are, again, multiple foot guns as to where you can leak lots of privacy when interacting with Lightning. Have you had a chance to read through this one? It's a long one.
No, I haven't. I wait until Guy Swan reads it for me and listen. But I have heard a little bit about it, and I have to say, like, I'm surprised when you said a lot of people sort of think that it's the silver bullet for privacy, and a lot of people assume that even without opening channels with CoinJoin funds that they're going to be private. I didn't actually know that was the general consensus. Like, I thought that most people understood that this was not going to be perfect for your privacy, and that more people were just using it to keep their fees down when making smaller transactions. I didn't actually know that was what people were thinking. I've always assumed, like, I look at Lightning Network as something I know a lot less about than layer one. I feel a lot less comfortable with it. And so I've always assumed, well, I don't understand what's going on here, so I'm probably going to fuck myself. I thought most people would have the same thought with it.
Yeah, I think some of the wording that is used by the implementation doesn't help. So, for instance, private channels, they're not really private. Anthony, in the article, describes them quite accurately as unannounced channels. But if you hear the word private channel, you think that's absolutely private. In actual fact, what it means is that it's not announced to the network. Obviously, if you wanted to receive a payment from, let's say, from me, you've got a private channel with, I don't know, Bitrefill. I owe you 100,000 sats. For me to pay you, you need to give me an invoice. Within that invoice, it tells me your node. With that node, then you can, if I pay through a certain channel, I can then see which UTXO opened that channel. So I can see your channel open transaction. So then I can sort of link your private channel to some of your on-chain activity. But the word private channel doesn't really tell you that, does it? So I think some of the wording lulls you into a false sense of security, unfortunately. So what I would say is to everybody to go and have a read of this article and tread a bit more carefully when you're using Lightning. You know, there's some easy steps that you can take to get a good base level of privacy. The obvious one is open channels with a single larger mixed UTXO. Don't create any change. If you do create change, just leave it where it is and don't create another channel with it. If you're going to create another channel with the change, make sure you go through another round of mixing first so that those channels can't be linked together. Spending on Lightning is inherently more private than it is receiving, because when you spend, you don't really need to give away any of your info. Whereas receiving, you basically, everybody can see which node that they're paying to. And obviously you can quite easily go on to 1ml.com, which is like a Lightning Network Explorer. You can punch in anybody's public key from their Lightning node and see all of their public channels. And from that, then, if there was a targeted attack, who, a sophisticated attacker that wanted to sort of gather a picture of how much money you've got on Lightning, they can do things like probing attacks where they can go and look at they can sort of send spoof payments to your node or through your node to try and gain a picture of, if you've got a channel with Bitrefill, they can sort of send test payments until one actually goes through, and that will give them a sort of picture of the size of that channel and also where the funds lie, who's got, how much of the funds are yours and how much of the funds are Bitrefill's. So yeah, it's a very, like I say, all-encompassing article that will hopefully make a few more tread a bit more carefully with Lightning.
Interesting. Yeah, it's it would be so cool if there was a way to open a channel using coin joined funds, and then you just that it was private from that point. And like, I guess a lot of people were just hoping that was going to be possible, but it sounds very much like it's not, or if it is, it's really not something that's easy or accessible for most people. You have to really know what you're doing to do things privately, especially if you're using it a lot.
Yeah, I think just so it's not all doom and gloom, at the end of the article, he talks about some additional tech that's either coming or is already in, which hopes to mitigate some of the sort of foot guns that he talks about in the article. So I won't go into in detail, but he's got obviously multipath payments, which we talked about before, rendezvous routing, trampoline routing, and then new implementations called Immortan, channel factories that are enabled by Taproot. So there's lots of things coming down the pipe that allegedly will help with some of the stuff that he talks about. So I'm fairly hopeful on the future of the Lightning Network, but this is a good one to rein back in the bullishness a little bit. What
was that thing that was talked about when you were just mentioning trampoline routing and all this kind of stuff? There was something that was talked about ages ago. I think it was Andreas talking about it. That was like Dandelion or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard about it, but I don't really know much about it, to be honest.
It was something like, if you like have a dandelion and then all the seeds blow all over the place. I think it was the seeds blow all over the place. It was something like you'd have a transaction and then that would be split into loads and loads of tiny payments and sent through as many random nodes as possible, and then they end up in one place after that, or something weird like that. I remember listening and being like, "Oh, that sounds pretty cool." But I just wondered if you knew anything about that.
Well, not specifically, but like I say, Anthony touches on quite a lot of stuff that's coming down the pipe at the end of the article. So definitely worth a read, that one.
Okay, cool.
Right. These last two are slightly more technical, so I'm going to hold my hands up and say I'm going to gloss over them a little bit, but they're worth a read for those that want to sort of dig in a little bit more. There is a new website called anyprevout.xyz, which is an explainer on a improvement proposal for Bitcoin called SigHash anyprevout. Now, this is a soft fork basically that allows a transaction to be signed without any specific reference to a previous output, which is the crux of how a transaction works at the moment. So it's going to be a soft fork that enables that functionality. Now, when, or if, should I say, if this BIP gets merged and we have a soft fork for it, that's what's going to enable things like L2, which is like a massive improvement to the Lightning Network. I'm probably not going to go any more deeper than that because I'm just going to make myself out to sound like a complete oaf. But one to watch out for, and I think this SIG hash any preval will probably be the next down the pipe after. After. Oh, that's optimistic of me. If we get Taproot in, which again is looking more likely. We've just started the new signaling period. Have you been keeping tabs on this, Max? We're looking pretty good so far.
I didn't someone say it was like 98% or something like that.
We are. We've had 215 possible signaling blocks in this period, and 208 of them have all signaled for Taproot. So if we continue on the current path, then we're going to get Taproot locked in on this difficulty period.
And that's like a 2-week period.
It is, yeah.
That almost seems like it would be too easy to me. Like with all the hype and all the chat that's been going on for so long, for it to just like a couple of weeks from now be like, oh yeah, that's done. That's sorted.
Yeah. So if at the end of this 2016 blocks or 2 weeks that we've got 90% signaling from confirmed blocks, which it looks like we're probably going to get on the current trajectory. It doesn't, nothing changes immediately. It just means that it's locked in and takes effect from November. It is. So there's not going to be an immediate change. But once it's locked,
but it's done.
Yeah, but once it's locked in, it's locked in. Then, so if the miners start fucking about after that, it's already too late. Basically, it's locked in and we're good to go.
So you think this is gonna? It just seems too easy to me. Like nothing's ever this easy. Where it's just like, all right, that's done. Like it feels like there needs to be battle and tears and blood and shouting and screaming and scams and bullshit.
I mean, I appreciate and admire your adversarial thinking here, and perhaps I am being a little bit naive, and I'm just looking at all these green blocks on Taproot.watch and thinking it's going to be easy. But what do you foresee happening that's going to trip it up?
I don't know. It's I just from experience, like whenever something seems too easy and it's not within the pattern that you normally see, then it's going to fuck you up somehow. Like it's when people get complacent and are like, oh yeah, well, that's going to go ahead. And like, it's always just something will happen. Like fucking Mara are going to come and do something dirty. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
They are pretty much the only people that are mining blocks at the moment that are not signaling, which is obviously getting them quite a lot of hate. I'm just looking now. We've got 5 red blocks. 1, 2 of them are Mara. One's unknown, which is probably going to be Mara again. There's one called ArcPool and one called BTC.com. BTC.com, I've been signaling for most of their blocks. In actual fact, the block before the one where they didn't signal was mined by them again, and they did signal. So maybe they're having some technical difficulties, which might lend itself to your theory that it might not be plain sailing, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to fuck it. It just seems too easy. I don't have anything more than that. Just like, I hope it goes through. It never seems like that in Bitcoin world. There's always someone fucking around, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. Well, the next time we record, hopefully, one of us will be right. Right, last piece on the notable articles. BitMEX Research have done a test with U3XO. Bit of background, U3XO is a proposal that where basically it makes block downloads 10 times faster. I say 10 times faster, that's a lot faster than they currently are, which makes obviously onboarding into your own node a lot easier. I'll give you some headlines of what it's allegedly going to achieve. It can achieve a full node of several kilobytes rather than multiple gigabytes. That's comparing to a prune node. That's just because of the way that it stores the data. it also allows for parallel processing of initial block downloads. So this is an interesting one. So if you have a Raspberry Pi and you want to do the initial block download on it, and you also have a MacBook Air, UTXO, if implemented, will allow you to split the work between the two devices, but still have one block download. So you're sharing the load. Now, UTXO has been talked about for quite a while. I've never really dug into it, but I was reading about it before we recorded, and that seems like a massive thing, don't you? Because you get the benefit of a really cheap single board computer that's low powered and cheap to run and cheap to buy. That's your node, but you also get the benefit of, if you've got a more powerful personal computer, you can leverage the power that's got for, say, I don't know, a day maybe.
Yeah.
Do some of the block download and the verification on the more powerful machine in parallel with the Raspberry Pi. And then once it's all done, you can just sort of hand off to the Raspberry Pi and go, right, there you go. You've got your block download. You can just keep up with the chain now. So
incredible.
Yeah, very good, very good. And I don't know what needs to happen really to get this in. But going back to the BitMEX research, they did some benchmarking where they've tested doing what I've just discussed versus a standard block download. So they used a fairly powerful machine, but I suppose the net result will be fairly similar. It's going to scale up or down based on the hardware that you use. So they used a computer with 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is a fair chunk. And to download Bitcoin Core the standard way took 175 minutes on this machine. To download it using UTXO took 128 minutes. So that is a 36% increase in block download time.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. And
That's pretty impressive, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to do some more homework on this one to see what needs to happen to get this implemented. But for me, it doesn't seem like there's much of a downside to it. Well, I tell a lie, actually. The way that it works is it increases bandwidth usage. So for 90% of the people that are interacting with Bitcoin, they're probably going to be on unmetered internet connections.
Broadband,
Yeah. So, but it does increase the bandwidth usage when you're doing the initial block download by about 20%. So this probably isn't going to work for people who are on, say, lower powered internet or anything like that. So an interesting one to keep your eye on, really. But I just thought that the benchmarking that BitMEX have done to sort of demonstrate the benefits of it really hits home. And I think as well, I'm just looking at some of the images, is if you want to split the work of that initial block download, you can do it with more than one machine as well. So in theory, you could say have like the coordinating machine, like your Raspberry Pi, but then you could have, if you've got multiple computers, you could share it with all of them. So the benefits in speed of the block download compared to just doing it through your Raspberry Pi, which takes 9 times out of 10, it's I've done it 5-6 times now, and it takes about a week for me. If you could share that with a more powerful computer, then massive gains.
It's unlimited how many you can split it across. So
I think so. Yeah.
For example, you could say, oh well, okay, it takes 5 days to a week on a standard Pi with a normal broadband internet connection in the UK. If you say we're in an office and you had 20 PCs, you could split it across those 20 PCs in a Raspberry Pi, and you could run those overnight when no one's using them, and it would probably be done.
I mean, in theory, that's the way that it's presented. Yeah, I mean, they don't talk about numbers that high. I'm just looking at one of the images now. They've got the coordinator, and they've got 3 other workers. So they're demonstrating there that there's 4 different devices all going at the same initial block download, working together.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, really cool. I like that.
Yeah. So that was a piece by BitMEX Research. It's a really good blog, actually, the BitMEX one. Most of it's quite technical, but if you're not scared about getting stuck in and reading some big words, it's a good one to follow. Right,
excellent.
I think we're done. We've only got the one question this month. Do you want to have a stab at answering it first, Max?
Yeah, let me just bring it up. So this one came to you from John Trumpet. Question.
Great name. We do seem to have some good names when we do get questions.
Yeah, that is a good name. John Trumpet. Question for Sunday. When do we stop pricing in fiat and value things in sats, whatever the exchange rate? I think this could be several years, but how, where, and when do we start? Do you want to try and answer that one, or do you want me to take it?
So I don't think there's going to be a particular shelling point on this one. I think it depends on your personal situation. So I'll use myself as an example. I've still got a dirty fiat 9 to 5 job. That is it's 99% of my income. So it's difficult for me to say price my food shop when I go down to Tesco to say, wow, those pack of beers equates to 50,000 sats. I mean, I'm just not there yet. Whereas if you compare me with somebody like the samurai lead dev, maybe, who works in Bitcoin, he gets paid in Bitcoin, that's his livelihood. That's going to be a lot easier for him to do because he's having that interaction between the two currencies a lot more often. It's his income, so he's going to be far more adept at sort of making that comparison. But what I like to do personally is if I've got any bigger purchases to make, if you equate them into sats at the current rate and then weigh up the potential opportunity cost of what happens if we see another run the way we just saw for the last X amount of days, weeks, months, whatever, that has already taken effect with me. So we were talking earlier about the laptop, and that was a difficult decision for me to make because I equated that into sats and thought, that is a significant amount of sats that I could buy rather than buying this new laptop. And it certainly makes you think a little bit more before you make bigger purchases. But to sort of loop it back to the question, well, from my point of view, I don't think there is a specific one. I think it depends on your situation really and the way that you interact with Bitcoin, because if you are 90% of Bitcoin Twitter, you're buying and holding, other than, if numbers going up and you see you're getting less sats for your dollars, pounds, yen, whatever, that's probably the only interaction that you have if you're never ever spending. So you're probably going to be one of the last ones to the party to start pricing stuff in sats versus somebody who actually earns them and lives off them.
Yeah, like you say, it's different for everyone. I kind of feel like it already is. It's just the market hasn't caught up with it yet. Things kind of already are priced in sats for a lot of people, and it's just not caught up. It's not yet standardized, but everything else is what is volatile against it. Like, so I probably would say I will price my life in sats and the things that I do in sats, and that is the unit of measurement of success for me. So if I'm seeing my fiat stack go up, it's not the same as seeing my sat stack. Like, I want to be seeing that number always increasing or at least staying the same. And I am, pricing my sort of success in sats. And if I'm taking a job or doing some sort of work, I'll be looking at it in terms of, well, what's the current price of Bitcoin? And like, for example, you're saying with your laptop, I'd be much less comfortable buying a laptop now than I would have a couple of months ago or a month ago, because now I'm like, well, not only is it that price, but also I could buy a lot more sats at this price point than I could at, say, 100,000. So I kind of think it's already there. Like, it is the only standardized measure. Like, trying to measure anything in fiat currencies is really fucking stupid because it's moving. It's like, having a tape measure that changes all the time. How are you meant to measure or price anything when it's constantly moving and changing value?
Yeah, completely agree. And something that's just popped into my head that I think might help, particularly Bitcoiners rather than sort of the general public, is exchanges using sats as their unit of account. I think that might help bring, sats as a concept more to the forefront rather than seeing the big unit and comparing everything to that. That might be potentially a shelling point that I alluded to might not happen before. But
Yeah, difficult question. I think the answer is just different for everybody. But in case he means like, when does he think that globally sats are going to be the unit of account for everyone?
don't hold your breath.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. And like, no one can know that there's so many moving parts. There's so many things going on. Like, you could never guess it. It's too much of a complex system to know what's going to come next. But if we're thinking it's going to happen, say it happens within 5 years, you've got to have some serious problems in the world. Not that we don't now, but like, you've got to see major currencies collapse. You've also got to see countries put this on their balance sheet, or countries literally come out and use this as their currency. You've got to see some pretty big and crazy stuff happen for that to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Which the pessimist in me says we're a long way off. I know you're of a different thought process, Max. So we will see how it pans out.
I am of a different thought process. I think in terms of value, like, the value that will come to this network is going to be massive over the coming years. But I still don't think people will price it in sats. I still think you're going to have the majority of the world running on shitty old payment rails, and things don't change that quickly. But it doesn't mean the value doesn't go crazy. Yeah. But there we are. I hope that answered the question.
Cool. Okay. So when we come back next month, you're going to give us a lowdown on how the multi-sig went, yeah?
I will.
No pressure.
Yeah, it's not going to be next month. Let's just be realistic. It'll probably be the one after that. But yeah, I'm going to give it a damn good go. And I might have to be reaching out to you when I have problems, sending some sats your way, because I know you've now got a new option for people who are struggling with things. I mentioned to you earlier, I've got someone to send your way. Can you give a little bit of information on it and what you're going to be doing and how you can potentially help people when they get stuck?
So I've opened up the optionality for people to have a one-to-one sort of tuition call with me for an hour over Zoom, Jitsi, whatever method suits you best. It just to be a voice call. Obviously, I'm trying to stay in the shadows in terms of visually, so it'll just be a voice call. But it's geared towards newcomers that might need a specific concept explaining to them, or they want to get involved with the Lightning Network, but they don't know where to start, or they have just bought all the kit to build their own node, but they're a bit apprehensive about where to start, and they might need a holding hand, or they've already got a node and they might want to get the best out of it. So it's geared towards those sorts of people that find value in a more of a personalized approach. So that basically I'm just there to answer questions and help them get over a specific hurdle. And yeah, like I say, it's for people who value that more personal approach. I do stress that most of the answers that people will need are likely either on my website, or you will find it in a BTC sessions video or a Catan video. And, the answers are out there. This is more geared towards people who want to ask specific questions, or just basically just feel more comfortable doing it when somebody's there to help them. So it's done on a value for value basis, which basically means that you pay me after we have the call for the value that you sent, that you felt that you received. There is a suggested payment on there, but it's just a suggestion. It's done on a trust model, basically, that hopefully I can provide value to whoever it is, and they would then sort of send some sats my way through my BTC Pay server that relative to the value they thought they got from the hour with me.
I like it. I'm so glad you're doing this, because, like I said, I'm sending this guy to you, and I'm so used to wanting to say to people, oh yeah, just reach out, if they're setting stuff up, and I know the problems that I've had. I was saying to them oh yeah, maybe you can reach out to Bitcoin Q&A, but I always feel bad because I'm I know you're so busy with everything else. I don't want to send these people your way, and then they're stuck and they're spending 3-4 days pulling their hair out and asking me questions, and I'm well, I don't fucking know. When this stuff breaks, I ask Bitcoin Q&A anyway. So the fact that I can just say, look, call him, have an hour with him, pay him some money so you don't feel bad, and make sure that he gets, he's giving out so much value here. It's going to save you 4 days of your life rather than, you can spend an hour rather than having 4 days of your life wasted and not feeling comfortable. Because I know, like, when I set up my cold cards and I was on the phone to you and I was like, oh my God, how do I make sure that this is actually being sent to the right address? How do I make sure I've got access? And I was so worried, like sweating, panicking. But then just knowing that I could chat to you about it and you could go through step by step, then I get off and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And that is invaluable to people. Like, I think that is such a useful thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, this idea comes from a place of I get people DMing me on generally Telegram every single day with like just sort of what I would deem as generally sort of basic questions, but sometimes the conversation then pans into a different subject or it gets a bit deeper, and it's a situation that doesn't really lend itself that well to back and forth on Telegram or Keybase or whatever. So it sort of comes from a bit of frustration from myself in wanting to help people, but it being a very poor use of my time and their time, just going back and forth for hours and hours, because text, I always find that text-based communications aren't that great at getting your point across without, writing War and Peace. So hopefully this is, wallets, nodes, anything like that. It's it's hand holding to get people off zero. So if there's anybody listening who's sort of interested, go to bitcoiner.guide/support and just get in touch with me from there.
Love it.
Thank you for the shill. I'm not a big one to sort of come out and be brash about it, so I appreciate your gentle push.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't chill it if I didn't believe in it. And like I've said to you off air, I really think this is fucking valuable. And there's so many, I know we're mates and I've offered before, like, I'll send you some stats. You've always said no. And I really appreciate that. But it takes a lot of your time and it's so fucking useful. And, chucking some sats to save yourself a few days worth of work and all the stress and all the pressure. Not everyone is built to do this stuff. Some of us are better off just mining the fiat and like we have a handheld and we know things are done properly and we don't pull our hair out. I'm very glad you're doing it.
Cheers, man. Appreciate that. So I think that wraps it up, doesn't it, for this month?
I think so. So next month, hopefully we won't have the audio problems and I'll be set up with multi-sig. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure to speak to you. And yeah, look forward to the next one.
Cheers, mate. Speak soon.